Welcome into sports. I'm Doug Lowery. Husker baseball takes on Creighton tonight at Hawks Field. The Huskers have won 14 of their last 15 and swept number 24 Texas over the weekend. Creighton comes into town on a 7-game winning streak of their own, sweeping a 3-game series versus Stetson over the weekend. Freshman Garrett King will start for the Huskers against in-state rival Creighton. In his last start against Cal State Fullerton, he only gave up 1 run in 5 1/3 innings pitched. The game is set to start at 6:35 tonight, and the first 300 students who arrive can receive a voucher for a free hot dog. Nebraska softball is in action today, playing a doubleheader against North Dakota State. The Huskers swept the Iowa Hawkeyes in a doubleheader last week by a combined score of 28-9 and went 1-2 over the weekend versus 12th-ranked Minnesota. The first game today started at 3 p.m. and the second game will start around 30 minutes after the first one concludes. Because of the late scheduling of these two games at Bowlin Stadium, they are both free to the public. After Nebraska basketball received the news that junior forward Walter Pitchford was leaving the team on Monday, the bad news bug hit the volleyball team today. Freshman Kira Larson and Maddie Haggerty, as well as sophomore Alexa Etheridge, have decided to leave the team. Head coach John Cook says that Larson and Etheridge are looking for more playing time, while Haggerty wants a fresh start after dealing with injuries. Each player will receive full release from their scholarships and will be available to play for another school this coming fall. Lastly tonight, longtime Texas head basketball coach Rick Barnes was fired over the weekend and has already landed on his feet. Less than 72 hours elapsed from the time he knew he was out at Texas to being named the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. Barnes leaves Texas as their all-time winningest basketball coach and led the team to the NCAA tournament 16 out of 17 seasons. That's going to do it for sports. Stay tuned for a story from the Husker women's basketball team during our social media segment with Brent Bonfleur. And make sure you tune in Thursday for Star City Sports, live at 5. For now, let's send it back over to John and Rebecca at the anchor desk.
And Doug, we'll start with you. We've seen players retire due to concussions and injuries. Former Titans quarterback Jake Locker, he's a good example. Do you think this is a trend that will continue to grow?
I don't think with what happened with Chris Borland will be a trend. This is a guy who hasn't had a concussion since high school. But we've seen players that are willing to retire if they think their health is at risk. Sidney Rice a couple years ago had some concussion issues. He was a wide receiver for the Seahawks. Even in all the way back to the early 2000s, in 2001, Robert Smith, a great running back for the Minnesota Vikings, who had just had a 1,500-yard season, decided to retire citing knee issues, and he said, "I'd rather walk away from the game now than limp away from it later." So it's going to be interesting to see guys moving forward if they're going to decide to be retire based on injury history. But for a guy like Borland, where he doesn't really have that history, I think you're going to see less and less of that.
I'm Doug Lowery, and these are your social media updates for the day. Jim Boeheim held a press conference today and announced that he will be retiring in 3 years. The Orange Men had a down year, going 18-13, even though they weren't eligible for postseason play. ESPN writer and funny man Bill Simmons took to Twitter today to share his thoughts on the situation at Syracuse. He rattled off a few tweets. My favorite of the bunch: "The Jim Boeheim situation is high comedy. I'm sorry we cheated so many times. As a punishment, I'm retiring 3 years from now." The NFL has league meetings next week, and teams are allowed to propose new rules they want to add to the discussion. Some of the new rules proposed: the Detroit Lions want to create a rule that allows penalties to be reviewed. The Chicago Bears want to make it reviewable to see if the play clock expired before the snap. My Bears also want to propose a rule that gives both teams a possession in overtime, because scoring a touchdown is no longer an indication of winning. We would be remiss if we didn't mention how crazy Twitter and Facebook have gone for the first day of the NCAA tournament. With UAB beating Iowa State, basically anyone who filled out a bracket freaked out. Social media became a platform for people to voice their frustration over busted brackets. That's going to do it for your social media updates for the day. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Star City News 15. For Star City Sports, I'm Doug Lowery. Let's send it back over to Dustin and Rachel at the anchor desk.
Bubba Watson has won 2 of the last 3 Masters. At 1 under, I don't think you can ever consider him out of reach. So I think that would be my pick. I think Rory's picking up a lot of sponsors, though, and he's young, and the women find him attractive. I think that's a good little formula he's got there.
Michael Jordan turns 52 today, and Twitter came undone with birthday wishes for the 6-time NBA champ. Thousands of fans took to Twitter and Facebook to wish the former Bull a happy birthday. Former UCLA Bruin Zach LaVine won the NBA dunk contest Saturday. His gravity-defying dunks were still trending on Twitter as of this morning. The 19-year-old from Renton, Washington pulled off 3 dunks between his legs and for good measure brought one around his back. LaVine is in his first season with the Minnesota Timberwolves and averages just under 8 points per game. Avery Harriman has gone viral more than once on social media. The son of Nebraska assistant basketball coach Chris Harriman was seen in videos at the hospital and arriving back home. Today, Avery went viral again. His dad, Chris, tweeted out a picture of him on the way to his first day of first grade. The 7-year-old has been in remission of leukemia since early January. Lastly, Alex Rodriguez posted a picture of a handwritten apology to Yankees fans. To see that, check out our Twitter at Star City News 15. That's going to do it for me. Let's send it back over to Amsley and Michael.
Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban made news yesterday saying college basketball's play is, quote, horrible. UConn women's basketball coach Gino Auriemma described it as a joke about a week ago. Guys, why all this outrage around the NCAA basketball? Is it actually a joke?
Absolutely, I think it is.
Well, I disagree. I mean, I think maybe, yeah, some rules are slowing the game down, but I don't think it's a joke.
All right, so you guys disagree a little bit here. Why, Doug, do you think that it's a joke?
I think a long shot clock, so much time spent in the bonus. I think the refs have too much control over the game and just low scoring.
Yeah, one other controversy with college and pro basketball is whether to allow players to go pro out of high school, make them go for a year of college or maybe even more. Where do you guys stand on that issue?
I think it's absolutely necessary to get rid of the one and done rule. Just spending 1 year in college basketball isn't enough, and college baseball actually already does this. They require you to spend 3 years in college if you don't go to the draft immediately. So I think we could see a kind of merriment of what college baseball does and going back to allowing kids to go straight to the NBA out of high school.